You happy now?
Only thing you say is you say that I know. Only thing is you behave like you don't. Don't really know what you think, but it shows. All your hate hurts.
Hello, welcome to episode 4 of the Showrunner Boot Camp. We're going to be talking about prep and production. I've got two fantastic guests here with me. We've got Mr. Jason Belleville, who is a creator and showrunner of Almost Heroes. Recent writing credits include things like Going Dutch, Acapulco, Home Economics,
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Yeah.
I love home economics.
I
Oh, you
know.
did?
Yes, I did.
Well, we'll talk about it then.
We will. We can tell you. We will get into it. And over here we've got Sasha Leigh Henry, who's a creator and showrunner of Bria, Mack Gets a Life. Also the director and writer of Dinner with Friends, a fefeature you can watch.
Yes,
You can watch now. You can go. We'll put up the.
I forgot you directed
places.
that. That's impressive. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So this is just straight up. You two are two of my fave people because you're both. I've known you both a long time. Jason, I've known 25 years.
25
Oh,
years.
wow.
25 years.
Yeah.
I went to comedy school with his little baby bro,
Yeah.
little Ron Belleville,
Who's now also old.
who's not.
Like all of us. Not you. Like us over here.
So this is great because I figured it was good to have you two, especially for this series, because there's so much that goes into running a show right from the jump of prep and production. One of the places we do have an episode where we talk about the writer's room, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was the writer's room prep, like just the idea of like having. Let's talk about like deliverables first. Like this is
wow.
I know
Okay.
we're getting into it. It's getting hot. Like for me, one of the
Buy a
things,
guy a drink first.
one of the things I like to set up my writers' room so they understand what we have to deliver to places. And I think the early documents are so important. The premise document and the outline. People want to jump to scripts and they think that's the meat. But I feel like if you have it set up early, you're going to be in a good place. And and one of the things this is for premise. I don't know if you guys do this with broadcasters, but for premises, I feel like we've done so much work in the writer's room to figure out what episodes are work for the show. I don't want to get that email from a broadcaster being like, I don't think this is an episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't ask them if it's an episode when I send them an email. I'm like, hey, here's a premise. Can you let us know if you've got another show that's doing something similar? Which parts of this you feel great about? Which parts of this you don't feel great about? But I'm not asking them for permission to make an episode. I'm just kind of checking for roadblocks. How do you guys do? Do you guys do?
Well, I've done premises many times. And one of the things that was on deliverables, I'll say two things. Well, maybe more. I qualified it that way. One is that it's amazing how many showrunners and shows don't have a tight timeline for that, who aren't used to that.
Yeah.
I think maybe in the U.S. system, it partly comes from having a little more fluidity in your time as opposed to here where everything's on the tightest budget possible.
Yeah.
And I've often been like, when do we deliver stuff? And they're like, we're not sure. And I'm always the jerk going, let's figure out, even if I'm not running, where we can do it. And the fact that premises, it's such an illusion. You're sending the premise in, but you only send it in, I mean, if you're smart, when you've already sort of pre-outlined it in your head and gone, are there 3 acts? Are there enough turns? So you send it in pretending, hey, we're thinking this kind of thing. But I think that's really smart not to make it a question because, we do have, when they toss out a premise, they don't realize they've tossed out, a chunk of work going.
You've spent a day and a half probably breaking that episode already.
Yeah.
Because you really almost are like at an outline, squeezing it into a premise, saying here it is, and then expanding it again.
And then when they're like, we don't like it, you're like,
But better than, I mean, you say with earlier stuff, I've been on shows, and I won't name which one specifically, where we write whole scripts and they're just gone. Or they pretend they didn't want to flag that they didn't like something early, or they were clearly not loving something and it got ignored, and we're like, we'll write our way out of it. We'll get through it. And you hand the script in, and they never fall in love with it. Then 4 days before you're shooting it, you're going back. And it sucks. It's the worst.
nightmare. So take care of business early. How are you, like, what are you, any tricks?
Most of my showrunning career exists in the wonderful but sometimes hellish world of 6 to 8 episodes for an entire season. And so we're often, like we have very tight parameters. You know when, like, you have an idea of when prep is going to go, but there's also only so much like, so what I normally focus on is like, what's the main through line? Does that feel evident how like this thing in one is going to be touched on again here or what have you? And that's kind of what I stick to sharing of like, here's the headline story for it all. And then some places we're thinking we could go, but a similar approach of more like, you know, are there any flags more so than there is like, you know, do you like this or not thing too? Because then there's also sometimes I always worry about the liking thing being like a real too open a question, right? And then sometimes I find, depending, I mean, with Bria, I felt like, you know, we had a really relatively experienced production team that we were working with on the network side, but on other things that I've been a writer on, it becomes like just what that executive likes or not kind of thing, and not necessarily, well, does this work for this? Like, you know, they're not assessing it from that other side. And so, yeah.
One of my favorite responses to, are you guys doing anything like this on another episode or another show, was I was working on Overlord of the Underwoods, sci-fi, comedy, family comedy. And there was an episode that, your brother actually wrote the episode for, it's like a shrinking episode.
Okay.
And one of the execs from the network was like, oh, I don't think we're doing anything like this on Heartland. And I was like, all right, that's a fun response.
Although it would have been great if they did. So with an 8-episode thing, you're saying more on the series arc, kind of like, here's what the shape of the series is going to be. If you can do that. I mean, when we did, for example, Home Economics, we did 22 episodes one season with no hiatuses, no breaks. So we shot the only time we had off were the 3 days for American Thanksgiving and then the week of Christmas, but no breaks. And so we really had to keep it going nonstop. And again, that's going to the trickiest thing I find about pre-production is that's when, if you're running, like whether you're in the room or the showrunner, there has to be this huge level of trust because, you know, the beast is eating pages. You can't, and the most disastrous rooms I've been in are when a showrunner comes back and wants to start over for the day, basically. You know, it's like, it's 5 o'clock, I've been on set. Or the showrunner has sometimes the showrunner has a favorite and they're on set with them and you come back and it's so exhausting when it's like you see them go to the top of the page and going, okay, go to act 1, okay, hit return. Now go back up, let's start. And you're like, they've been here all, and I know someone who was on a show, not a good show, and they were there till 3 a.m. every day doing that because the level of trust wasn't there. And that's where I find the most challenging thing is, and that's why I think premises are so important, not just for the network, but for the showrunner in the room to know they're on the same page. Yeah,
it's like an agreement between you and the room too, right?
Yes, 100%.
Kind of like, and that even because if you are going to make that turn, that we have to call it that, right? We are removing this and we're going to replace a thing instead of the kind of like, no, we'll just start here and then like you start at the chipping away and then it is return.
I mean, one of the things where I feel when I'm running something, whether like on Acapulco, I was brought in. My buddy Sam was running it, but he looked like he may have to leave. So they brought me in as a backup showrunner, which was great because I got to do all the stuff but have none of the pressure. It was great. We had a great system going, and I would just run the room all the time when he was doing pro, or we'd tag in and out. But it's like no showrunner wants to come back into a room and hear, oh, that didn't work. So in a different way, it's like, well, I would have loved to see why it didn't work, or just give me a shout and say, this doesn't work because of this. Because if I have a fix, great. Or if I don't have a fix, when I come back, at least I'm braced for a new direction. And because you can't hide it when you walk in. You're like, that
episode
I loved. How's it going? Oh, we threw that out because of this and went this way. And you're like trying to hide it and go, oh, great.
But can we just talk about that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because like in a lot of the shows in the States, if they have the money for it, you're doing prep, production, and post-production at the same time.
Yes.
It's just like you're always in those 3 stages at the same time. And a lot of shows here in Canada, like we don't have the budget for that. So it's a lot of like, hopefully getting scripts together in advance, doing your prep, and then getting into production, and then getting into post, or doing some production and post at the same time. But it is so important as a showrunner to have people you trust and to trust the people that you're working with to move things along. Because I've also have many friends who've been in those places where they're just like, oh, we don't know what's happening.
No.
And the showrunner
and you have to be okay
busy.
Holding loosely a little bit in the sense that when you come back, it's not going to be exactly what you were going to write.
Yeah.
But that can be great. The reason you hired those writers in the first place is they're going to come up with stuff you didn't have. When we did, I did 4 seasons of a show called Brockmire on IFC, and most of that, Joel had a vision for what the show was going to be. But like we broke the first season entirely in 2 weeks. So Joel, myself, and Alex Reed, who's our writer-director, won an Emmy for Malcolm in the Middle. And we had to come up with it and then write it all. And every year it was like 2 or 3 of us or 4 of us coming up with the season and then writing it. But because of the nature of it, we wrote it all ahead of time, but it all had to be a million pieces moving at once. And there had to be a lot of trust. And again, like the last season, Joel had to leave. So it was just me and the director of that season doing all the prep stuff. And you're doing 8 scripts at a time to block shoot them all.
Yeah.
And if you can't trust other people to run with stuff, you can't hold it all in your head yourself.
It's funny because I always say that, like, I mean, of course there's issues in terms of inclusion and representation, but so much of the gatekeeping I find that happens in our industry creatively is not for a lack of not wanting, but it is because of that trust. It becomes very hard, especially when you're in a time crunch or in a pinch or you're in a situation, where it's like, yeah, there are 8 episodes going at once, for you to not want to draw for the people you have a shorthand with, right?
Yes,
it becomes very tough to consider opening that door because it does mean you don't know what you're going to get and that kind of thing. And I think some of that kind of gatekeeping energy was more a symptom of that, was as much a symptom of that as it is other systemic things.
Yeah.
But trust really does become so very important. And I think it's interesting because like most of my career exists, like you said, in Canada and in a streaming world where we're talking limited episodes. So we're often finishing all the scripts before we go to shoot. But I do, I was fortunate enough to be in the room for Working Mom season 6. And I mean, I really consider that like, my kind of TV boot camp, because it was the first show, because I had been in development on stuff, but Working Moms was actually in production. It had previous seasons. It had a fan base of people love. So I really got to see in a way that I wouldn't have on mine. Okay, well, we've done certain stories before. We've tried this with this character. So there's a history of it. How do we add on to that? But then what also happened to them, we were in that room, the last few weeks of the room were when the first few weeks of prep were starting. And so that was the first time I got to see that kind of overlap. And you learn so much. You really, really, really do learn so much. And I think it definitely helped me know how to understand what to be precious about when I was in the room, because, we had spent almost 2 months writing and they got an extra order for 3 more episodes. So the same time to do 10, I think we're now doing 13.
Right.
And which is part of why the schedule started to overlap. But then in the last few weeks, once prep started and line crews are doing the thing and they're reaching out to cast or what have you, one of the key casts who was just a featured guest at the end of the last season, who was going to be a big part of this season, actually got booked to be number 1 on another show. They were only willing to let him go for a certain amount of time. So it became really fascinating, and it was definitely a challenge, but I learned so much to see okay, well, we've written him into 10 out of 13 episodes, and we have the next 2 weeks to try to decide hold on to this story or to let it go and see how we can repurpose. But it was such a big part of Kate's arc, central characters' arcs, and so the brush up of that, as nice as ideal as it sounds to finish all your episodes before you go thing, I did learn a lot about production and just okay, well, we don't have that house anymore. So where's this office now going to become, and having to go back to all the blue sky and this is funny and not funny, and it have to be practical but still deliver on the promises.
There are always going to be things that pop up. That's the thing about prep and production. There are always going to be things that you don't expect happening. So it's so important to be ready for the stuff that you know is going to happen. Get that stuff ready as soon as you can, so that you're not trying to do that while the new stuff is popping up. With one more thing I'll say about the premise documents that I learned from Greg Daniels, actually. One of the things that we try to do was he called them Goldilocks documents, and they were a page and a half long. It was just the story, just beginning, middle, end. Here's all it is. None of the bells and whistles, none of the extra stuff. We just want this is the story.
Right.
If that works, then we'll bring all the rest of it in. So that was very, very helpful for me, because I was oh, okay, story first. Get the beats together. And then going to the outline, I'm wondering for you guys, one of the things I always try and make sure when I start is talking about, actually, before we even get to that, we should talk about dealing with broadcasters and knowing how many scripts.
I want to know what you were about to.
Oh no, I'll get to it. Okay. It's really good.
I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat.
It's really good. But I do think we should talk about for upcoming showrunners, you have to sort of set up like how many scripts you're gonna do. Like these are the basic questions that you should make sure, because I feel like sometimes you kind of like run into it and you don't know all the basics, which is like, how many scripts do you need? Like what are like, that's one of the first things. Like sometimes like for me when I was working on Shelved, for a while it was gonna be 8 episodes, then it was gonna be 10, then it was back to 8. Like these are things you need to know before you're setting up your schedule. And it's not don't be afraid to ask that question, I guess is what I'm saying. Sometimes broadcasters just assume that just check in, how many episodes do we need, what's going to happen, because you can't set your schedule until you know that. And I think also another important thing to do is find out from broadcasters and from producers that you're working with how long they need to react to material. Bake that into your schedule, because sometimes some people are going to be like, I can get back to you within a day. Some people are going to need a week. It just kind of depends how.
And don't be afraid to set that yourself too. When you say, I need, if you can do it in 4 days, I need it in 4 days. But I think understanding the parameters of what the show is going to be is huge. And it can change. I EP'd a show and I ran it through pre-production called Sneakerheads for Netflix. And we started with, I can't remember, it was like, we ended up with a different amount of episodes than we were starting with. But we were shooting it only for $450,000 US with a really cool video director in the States and for nothing. So it was fluid, and that we had to be ready to change. But I think knowing how many episodes it's going to be, how many weeks of prep you're going to get to write those episodes, because that can let you know how realistic it is to write the stuff in the room, and also how big a gap between when you're writing and shooting. Because you think to yourself, and I've done a lot of these 8 or 10 episode things as well, where you write it all first, then you shoot it, and you think, oh great, I'll have this division of labor. But quite often it butts itself so clearly that you're in casting and you're in prep and you're, especially now when you can't guarantee where it's going to shoot. Like the last 2 shows I shot were in Ireland and Mexico. So you're like, suddenly you're like, we're trying to get all this stuff written. But even then, even with all of that, there's so much outside of the room stuff. And how big a gap is that going to be? And asking all those questions ahead of time really, you're right. You don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid to push it and ask, saying, can you do it this way? Can we do 10 episodes? You know, because it makes a huge difference. I would say the other thing is, I think for all this, the most important thing in the room is the number 2 position. And people don't always have that because you need to, people are sometimes afraid to set up a hierarchy. But it helps everybody. And then you can't get mad at the room. You and the number 2 can have a discussion if the story went way off base or the prep went way off base, but you don't have to, they know who they're pleasing. Anyway, sorry. Go.
No. This is all.
But I think my point is structure. I feel like we are. William Goldman talks about how we're more like craftspeople than artists in a lot of ways. And when you said that, like you lose an actor, you lose a set. You can't just write any episode. You have to be like, we have to write any episode we want that gets this character to here and uses these 3 sets and has like there's limitations. And knowing what all those parameters are just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I think in this it's interesting because I you know, in these times of capitalism, everything that we want to push against the idea of like saying anything should be a hierarchy. But I do believe that too, even as a director on a film set kind of thing, you need the hierarchy, not in terms of that's where you're acting from in every time and like it's, but when the decision needs to be made, or when you do need to have the sidebar, or when you do like who is supposed to hold what, it like that clarity. You know, someone said a phrase to me last year that I've been really holding. Clarity is kindness, and it really, really.
I love that.
That's great. That's really great.
It really, really, and I do feel that, right? Like, you know, the more time and effort you put into like clarifying, being clear on who is supposed to be doing what, and even things like if you're not going to be there, right? Making the goal for the day of the room explicit, or what the like,
100%.
What is it that we need to solve here, and saying that at the outset, kind of thing, because. Yeah, sometimes you're in the writing room and like it's you talking about your life and things can get way off base, but just even arming the room when you're not there with something to come back to. When all else fails, what are we supposed to be doing again? Right, it's this, and we need to make sure we have this.
I love the clarity point, because I have one of the nicest showrunners I worked with, I won't say, was not good at that. And so you end up with a guy you really like, who's super sweet, nice guy, but everybody would be pitching different things and it would go back and forth because you wouldn't want to make a decision that favored someone or put someone here. And so you ended up at the end of a day not getting any further. And I think clarity isn't just, that's a great point, not just for number 2, but I mean, telling a staff writer that you hire, if you don't have to talk as much as the Cody B's been around a lot. If you got stuff, say great, but don't feel pressured to. If you have a couple of funny jokes in a day, great. If you come up with a character, but wonderful.
Yeah.
You're there in a mentorship role as
Yes,
well, where you're
yeah.
being brought up and just letting everybody know, here's what I need. I need you because you're so good at story, and I'm going to
Yes,
turn to you and ask you questions.
yes, yes.
And because I think people don't know sometimes when they're succeeding.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Like checking in is a great thing for not only for showrunners to do with their writers and with their crew, but it's also good for people to check in with showrunners. Like I always tell people, I invite that conversation. It's one of those things that I always tell people. Like, I introduce myself, I connect with them, I let them know if there's any time they want to talk about anything, I'm here to do that. And I think that openness allows for not only for a better set, but it allows for a more creative set because people feel more willing to bring themselves to your show.
Yeah. No, truthfully, when I was on Work Mom, that was my first big writing room experience. And it was interesting because, like, again, there's a built-in history. There's 5 seasons of the show. Like, most of the writers had been working on it for multiple seasons, and I was newly coming to it. I think the other new writer was an actor-writer from the show as well, so it had a different relationship. And I just remember my first 2 days being like, oh my God, it's 4 hours have passed and I haven't said anything. 4 hours have passed and I haven't pitched a thing. Okay, it's day 2 and I still haven't pitched a thing. And then like somebody, I was like, ha 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 ha. Yes. Yeah, oh my gosh. And it created, like, I was so in my head about the fact, and especially because I think I'm funny, why am I not saying anything funny? This is insane. Like that. And then I remember the first day, Catherine had a call with me and was just checking in, and she's like, oh, you're doing great. Like, how's this? I love this. And I was just like, oh, okay, good. And I felt comfortable with him and be like, okay, I'm really glad to hear that because I felt like I was. And she was like, no. And so it just freed, like, I definitely was better in the room after that conversation too, because, and it took me by surprise because I think I'm a fairly confident person and all that kind of stuff. But you just, humans are humans kind of thing.
Humans are humans. I think scheduling, I've been in situations when sometimes you schedule, when you start the room, you say, oh, in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to sit down with everybody for like 10 or 15 minutes, see how their thing out's going, which is great because as soon as you say, hey, you want to talk, people are nervous or they've done something wrong. Whereas if they know you're checking in with everybody in 3 weeks. Because then, and also then it gives you an excuse. If there is an issue with somebody, they don't feel put on the spot.
That's good.
And sometimes you also get feedback on yourself too. You can go, how's it going for you? And someone can say to you, well, it's going great. I'm not sure if I know what you need from me or what the direction is from this. I feel like I'm pitching a lot of stuff that's getting shot down and I don't know why. And you can go, oh, I think it's because this character's more like this. And I was on a show, Life in Pieces on CBS, and we did.
I love Life in Pieces too.
Oh, he's done all the shows. He's done all the shows.
Well, I only came in on the 4th season of that one.
Love that one as much as the others.
Oh, good. But I'll tell you, a show like that, when you've had 3 seasons, I don't know if you know, Life in Pieces the gimmick was you had 4 vignettes in the show. So you saw, and sometimes they'd interconnect, and the best episodes would they dovetail, but it meant there were 4 A stories in every episode.
Right.
So an episode, season 4, normally you'd have had 66 A stories, right? We had done 250 A stories.
Right.
So you'd be like, what if he gets a hat? Oh, he had a hat. Oh, okay. What if he gets shoes? That's close to the hat thing. What if he gets fired? We've had 3 people get fired. You're like, gee, And so having that communication to be able to say, don't feel bad. We've done more stories by this point than any show ever. So you're going to hear a lot of, that's similar to this, that's similar to this. But again, you could feel, if you didn't have that awareness, you would have felt shot down a lot.
That's smart. I'm going to steal that. Set up the 2-week check. Like, because worst case scenario, it's just to be like, isn't it great? And we're loving this and you're having a good time and I'm having a good time. But it does create an opportunity to address things that doesn't feel like, because I do feel so much of, in a leadership and naturally, you're so right. People are on their defenses of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a call. What is a call? But like that kind of thing.
I'm nervous having to ask someone to have a confrontational conversation. Even if I'm the person doing it, it's like, whereas if it's like, you can, if you know you've got a 15-minute window, you can play
and they
around.
Can track things as they go. Like over the next couple of weeks, they can be like, oh, you know, I'm going to mark that as something to chit-chat.
And you can also mention after you've had that conversation, then casually a few weeks later, you can be like, hey, that was much better today. That was great. Really loved that. Or you're fired, get out of here, dirtbag.
And don't talk to me until our 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Don't look me in the eye.
Go sit in the other room and write tags and teasers for the next 2 weeks.
So, okay, that's a good little segue into like talking about outlines and drafts, because this is one, for me, like, the outline is, to me, the most important document when you're getting to scripts, because I feel like you really figure out like what's working, what's not working in that document. And for me personally, this is a thing that's different for every writer, but for me personally, if I have a strong outline, it's so much easier to write a draft because I'm just smoking through the draft. But once I have a strong outline, one of the things I do with my writers when they have outlines is like I'll actually get them to share them with each other. So
that's a good idea.
They can like give notes to each other on their outlines, and I'll also give notes too. But I think one of the things that helped me coming up was like I got better at my own writing the more I learned how to critique other people's writing. And it doesn't mean that you're going to take every note, but like it's one of those things where it's like it just gets the room to be a little bit more cohesive. Everyone's kind of seeing what everyone's doing. And I do the same thing with drafts and giving notes, getting notes. Though as a showrunner, you're gonna get notes from people, from broadcasters and producers, and then you have to, sometimes you either take care of the notes yourself or pass the notes on to the writers so they can take care of them. And then you're also going to be giving notes to your writers to get the scripts close to where you need them to be. I was wondering if you guys had any experiences, tips specifically about giving notes, getting notes.
I'll tell you one thing. It's so funny and it's so obvious, but starting with positive stuff. And I've been on a show, I won't say which one, where it was really nice people, super smart people, but no interest in giving positive feedback first. So you'd hand a script in, and like the day would go by, and you're like, okay, and then you'd be like, okay, let's go rewrite. Let's go talk about your script. And you'd be like, okay, and you walk in, they'd sit down and go, yeah, it's in really good shape. Let's talk about it. And you're like, okay, but you wouldn't know until then, or that would be the most they'd say. And all you need is a little bit of that environment. But for me, I think sharing it, ideally, if you have time, tabling an outline, somebody can chime in, and you can steer it, because it's not just is the outline good, but does it give you what you need to get the network on side? Yeah. Less is more. The number one note, the subtext of the number one note every network gives on a premise is, can this be an outline? And an outline is, can this be a script? Because they're always looking for more stuff. Paring that down, making it smaller. But I think tabling the script, having an opportunity for everybody to get their laurels and their praise for like, this is great. What a great outline. We love this and this and this.
Yes.
Now let's dive in and have fun doing it. Because often, I don't know if you feel this way, I still do. Sometimes there's an outline where there's parts that are not working for you. Yeah. And having that help is such a relief. If people can say, that's great. Let's help you with this part that's not working. Because again, the outline is everything.
So important.
It's everything. Because then if the script comes in and it's bad, which happens sometimes, no matter if you're writing, anyone's writing, and just the script isn't working, if you know the story works, you can trace it and figure out what's wrong. If the story never got ironed out, you're like, I don't know if the story's bad or just the execution isn't working for some reason. I don't know what this is. And we could spend 2 days chasing it to realize the story is ether. Yeah. Whereas if the story's bulletproof and inherently funny, as opposed to, I think, a show you and I worked on, we talked about, sometimes it was like putting icing on a brick. Yeah. Like the story is, here's the story, nothing funny about the story. Let's put some jokes on top. Jokes around here. It's a cake.
Putting icing on a brick is amazing.
And that's what that was. And I use that a little bit. Whereas if the story is inherently funny and you know what the funny is from the outline, then if the execution isn't working, you know what to address. Because there's nothing worse than spending 2 days of a writer's room, which is so much money and time, to get to the end and go, I guess the story doesn't work. That we've already premised, we've already outlined it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that tabling it in front of everyone is very helpful too. And I think also creates a kind of camaraderie with giving critique that takes, especially because your episode is in there too, right? Yeah. And so you're also taking the critique. And 100%. Sometimes I try to be, sometimes I'll be demonstratively harder on myself in my episode and say the thing or whatever. It's like, this isn't, because obviously too, you're the showrunner. So just giving permission to be like, no, see, this is what we're all here for.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I think that also, in tabling it also helps to reveal, in my experience, it also helps reveal where there's like just a gap, or you've doubled up on a beat or something happening and you didn't realize it. And so now you need a second one. But that help being there and built in and working on it together, I love having, the support. Because in film writing, screenwriting, you just don't have that in the same way.
In a vacuum.
You're creating that team once you realize like, oh, I need to get outside of myself and thing. But the outline, I used to, because I started more in film, I used to just like jump into script and like do all that. But
for sure,
outline is, it really is, it is everything.
Yeah. Do you outline as much, so you don't outline as much in film?
Well, I didn't before I started working in TV, but I do now because I like the guy. Like I will run the scene forever on just the cheekiest dialogue, and I'm having the best time, and then having the outline when I come up for air and be like, I was like, oh, well, this is 2 pages too long, and I need to try and get to here next.
Yes,
is very helpful for me. Versus like, I just end up with scripts that are too like it takes. it's taking draft after draft to get it to where it is. Where when I have the outline, it's taking far less drafts, right? We're tweaking and editing different things than actually just editing the story.
And time
for the
is
first
such
time.
a resource. It's interesting because you're right. Whether you could debate whether you can make a great script without a great outline, you absolutely can. It just takes. And whenever I'm doing that, like if it's a single camera half hour, if I have a good outline, my first draft might be like 35 pages. If I don't have a great outline, it might be 45 pages because I'm going, is this the bit? Is this the thing? Is this the thing? Which if I had all the time in the world, maybe I come up with a really interesting episode that way, but you never have all that.
Yeah.
How long do you usually give your writers to do an outline or a script in the room?
Oh man, it really depends on what. This is back to that scheduling thing because sometimes there are times where I've been able to give someone a week.
Great.
Yeah.
And there are times when I've only been able to give them like 2 days. Like you can leave the writer's room for 2 days and come back to me with
whatever you got.
With whatever, and then we'll work together as a room. I would love. I think a good amount of time is like for a half-hour comedy. I think a good amount of time is like 3 days for an outline, especially if you're not in the room. You take the time. I think you can, because I think beyond that, you're gonna start just questioning yourself and just kind of like rewriting it. But in 3 days, you'll bring something back to the room that's like done, that's connected to what we broke as a group.
Now, do you break it pretty thoroughly on the board before that?
I try to, but I also tell people like the episode needs to be what it needs to be for right now, not what it needs to be for the final draft. Like we're trying to get to the next level. Like so if when I break a story, I need to make sure that it feels right for the characters.
Sure.
It feels like we've got a beginning, middle, end. When I get to an outline phase, I want to know, like, what did we miss when we broke the story? Like, what did we forget about? And then that will smooth out some more things. Then when we get to draft, it's like, oh, now we can smooth out a few more things.
That's a great way of putting it. So the pressure isn't to make it perfect.
Right.
It's like, we know this is what the episode's going to be about. We think this is the way the character is going to get there. Let's pressure test it.
Yeah, because I just feel like so much of writer's block and changing things and going back over and over and over again, it's about people feeling like it needs to be the final version now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we need it to be what it is for right now. Like,
that's a great point.
Like, because I feel like, we both see what happens when you get even into an ADR session at the end of the process when you've already done all the things. Someone comes along and is like, oh, what if you said this crazy thing here? And all of a sudden you've got another joke that just kind of layers in behind all the madness. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm continually going to be working on this. Until it airs. Like so.
I mean, I don't like sending a writer off with something where I don't have confidence in the beats, but I know that they're not, like, often if we finish the end of the day break, it always ends up working where you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, boom, we finished breaking it. I like to come in the morning and look at it fresh and then say, great, we all still hold hands? We're all still in this? Go. Because again, it might, because I just don't want to sabotage them. But I think 2 or 3 days is great because realistically, you're going to write most of the outline in a day and a bit. But you're going to spend it. You need a full day or so to stare out the window.
This
is my rule for writing any script. It's always like when I'm doing a draft. It takes like 1 day to write the cold open, then 1 day to write the first half, and 1 day but the cold open's a full day, and then a day for the next act, a day for the next act. Always divides that way because you're just like, where do you? And I think so much of it's letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think what you're saying is very freeing to go, this doesn't have to be perfect. We think it works. Let's find out you're not going to be to blame if it doesn't. That's great.
No, that really is great. It's like, we've got this to a 7. Bring it back like a 7.5 or 8. And let's see what we got to do to bring it to a thing.
Let's keep it moving.
That's really good.
But also let me know if it goes wildly off, because sometimes they come in with something that on the second beat, it went adrift, and they were a whole outline away from that, and you're like, oh, I wish you just called me.
That's a good, because I feel like that's a good point for showrunners who they're sending their writers off. Like I always do this like a little kickoff document when I'm sending a writer off to either work on an outline or a draft. Something that kind of has like, here's what I'm looking for. This is the outline that's been approved by the network. Here's the more recent notes. Here's what I'm looking for from this script. You've got this many days. Like I just lay it all out for them. And then
that's great.
Just so that I call it like the little draft kickoff email, and then they're like, oh, okay, I'm off the script. Like I think there's that thing. Like I think for the first time I was off the script, I was like, wow. It's my responsibility now. It's like I'm holding this episode in my hand. And then so I think having a little bit of like a just having a little bit of a moment where you can kind of like feel like, oh, okay,
It's a big deal, yeah.
It's a big deal. Like I'm taking, and I have a responsibility to the room to come back with something that's going to move us forward, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of.
I cut you off a second ago, by the way. You were going to say something really brilliant, I know.
No, was I?
It was really, really
You always
brilliant.
do.
I think I was. Oh, it was just to more we were saying about like in terms of the, caveats and front loading certain things. And so one experience I had on Bria too was I knew there was a big emotional kind of fight scene between the mom and daughter. And I thought about that for so long and things like that. But I had given away that episode. And so in that, similarly, as you guys were saying, I said to the writer, like, I have an idea of what I want. Like, take a crack at it. This is the kind of thing, what have you. But I might still take the pass at that scene.
That's a great warning.
Especially because it was such a, like, I had personally knew for so, like, it was just in my head kind of thing. But I had no problem with her, like, taking a stab at it. Let's see, like, seeing what comes with. But I was like, just don't be, just a heads up that I might still take last pass at that because I know really acutely what that is. What's supposed to be happening there kind of thing. And I think that helps too because it was also very obviously the big emotional scene of the show and that kind of stuff. So similarly saying about the pressure and being able to feel like, okay, I'm just going to take a chance at this and see where I land. But she already knows that maybe she might step in here and that kind of thing.
And as a showrunner, like it is our job to make sure that, like as a showrunner, I tell people like you're going to get input from everywhere.
Yeah.
Your job is to decide what the output is.
Yeah.
And so accept input from everywhere you can. It's fantastic. But then at the end, decisions have to be made. You have to decide what the output is. And we're going to have to rewrite scripts. We're going to have to get in there and do the things we need to do to make sure that we're getting what we need out of these episodes. Because later on down the line, when you're in an edit or you're in a mix or whatever it is, like you're alone. Like it's on you. And if you don't have the stuff that you need, you're going to kick yourself and be like, oh, I should have said something before. And I've been there before, like where I was early in my career, I was like, oh, I don't think I have the right to say that thing. And then later on when I was in the edit, I was like, I should have said that.
And it's because it's just you in the room. Everybody else is gone.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yes.
And realistic, that's the toughest thing. The hard part is being a writer is not the same skill set as being a showrunner.
Yep.
And some of the best writers I know are only okay showrunners, and some of the best showrunners I know are not even the best. But occasionally it crosses over.
Yeah.
Everybody's amazing. But it's that decision-making ability, that multitasking ability, and the ability to, one thing I always say when you get into pre-production and production is, as a showrunner, never think about anything until it's time to think about it, because you got a million things going on. So don't be writing a script while you're thinking about wardrobe. Don't be in a wardrobe meeting going, well, is this going to work with it? Like, you have to delineate. And the thing that'll kill you is walking from meeting to meeting to meeting without having made a decision in each one, going, we'll revisit that, we'll revisit that. You got to go, that's the hat, move on. Because if it isn't, because that'll kill you. You're like going, suddenly you have 17 pending decisions. And it's that thing of like, make the decision and then make it right. And again, reserve the right to revisit it when you see that, like you're like, wardrobe's an easy example. With this one or this one, that one. And then when you see it, go, oh, shit, can we, you know?
Let's go back to the other.
Or you can even say, that one, have that one on the day just in case. And that way people are, and then move on, you know? Because you're right, so many things are constantly changing and you have to constantly roll with. And I think what you said is great about the warning writers, because it's always going to go through your hands in some capacity. And letting them know that ahead of time. And in fact, sometimes I'll make a point of, they'll say, the showrunner's peeing on the script but even a great script that comes in, I'll make a point of doing stuff because I know I'm going to have to do one that's not in as good shape, and I don't want them to be like, wow, I got rewritten and nobody got touched before me. But that's really great to say, this is a scene I'm emotionally close to, so when don't be offended if I take it and run with it. But I love the fact, and with some of the stuff that they wrote, did some of the stuff they wrote stay in that scene as well?
Totally.
That's great.
It was just like the flow into it and out of it, and that, like, but the main point of it was there. It was just how we were, and because it was very specific about like Jamaican culture and like that kind of thing too. So there was just a certain words that I don't think they inherently would know, or like what's really happening when she's saying this thing or what have you. So it worked out really well. But I think it is to just the managing expectations. I think we underestimate in our industry how it's a clarity is kindness thing again too, right? It's just like being able to say that means you don't feel slighted or you're not taking it on the thing. I still trust you as a writer, right? This is why this happened, kind of kind of thing.
I want to shout out when I was doing Acapulco, co-created by my friend Austin, and then Sam Laybourne was running it the year I was on, and Austin was there too. But what he was so great at is he would say what he wanted and what was going to happen, but he actually genuinely loved being surprised when he'd come in the room and he'd be like, this and this. He'd be so excited about it because also Sam and I, two white guys running it, we had a full Latinx room and like people from all over the spectrum. We had like a late 40s guy who'd been a playwright before. We had a young queer writer who was just hilarious and outside of our point of view. And we genuinely were like, these are characters in Mexico in the 80s, which I remember the 80s, they don't. But I mean, we all have to work together to find. And if you come up with stuff that's more specific and better, wonderful.
Yeah,
we're here to really shepherd these voices through because they're not our experience.
Yeah.
And I love that a showrunner genuinely being delighted when it's like, I know we said this, but we thought this would be better. And it doesn't always work, but he would approach it from I want this to be good, not this isn't what we talked about. And I love that because otherwise, why don't you write it by yourself?
Exactly. Yeah. To me, and it's funny because I think there are people, especially when most of my showrunning career happened in a post 2020 world, and so I think. Which doesn't mean there's not still bad actors, of course, but I think so many people had been so burned by experiences where it was like, like, let me know what you think, but also, why would you ever share your opinion here and not just write what I told you to write? Yeah. That you do have to go make that call out and say, like, I'm open to the surprise, I'm open to the challenge. Genuinely, I always say, it might still be no, but I'd rather hear it than you not share it kind of thing, because what is the point? That's why you're here. I don't think I'm always going to have the best idea for the thing, or my brain is so fixated on trying to fix that other thing, I don't realize, this funny little thing can happen here. Like, this is what I want. This is why I'm hiring y'all. This is why, I love what you can do. And so, like, feel free to bring it actually kind of thing. Yeah.
And the challenge sometimes is you have such a finite time.
Yeah.
And there are challenges where you're like, this is an important conversation about this character, about what you're talking about, especially if there's a cultural, or if it's an issue about a female character and a female writer is having a hard time with it, and you're like, I know this is important, but the clock's ticking in your head of like, we only have so many days to get. So sometimes we'll say, why don't we sit down at lunch and talk about this, and we'll move on to the next thing. Sometimes you're like, I can't have all 8 of us spending an hour on this right now. It's a super important point, but I don't know. And especially right now, I got to say, what's really scary is the rollback of diversity stuff in the U.S. I have friends who, would say, we're running a show, very diverse room, which is great. They pride themselves on that. They got the network, or someone mentioned to them as they started up the next season, now that Trump's in office, you can hire whoever you want. And they were like, we hired these people because we think they're great.
Yeah, we hired who we wanted.
It wasn't an like there are people we're not. And they immediately were told, we knew that. That's fine.
You're like, don't have to worry about that diversity stuff anymore.
It was just so crazy. Again, and especially I was very sensitive to Acapulco because it's there still isn't a huge Latino population in writers' rooms. It's still underrepresented considering the population down there. So it's one of those things where you're like, there's so many great writers out there. I'm gonna not say that, but it's one of those issues where it's like, creating a writer's room and an environment where there are experiences I don't have, and I have to make time to hear them because that's what I want in the show. Home Economics was quietly the most diverse multicam, single cam on network TV because we had a biracial lesbian couple raising 2 adopted kids, and then Topher was married to a Latino woman, and they had 2 kids, and it was like this really melting pot, quietly under the radar show, but that was only made possible because we had writers from all those backgrounds in there, and then I guess because Topher Grace would be what I write straight down the middle for. We need like a late 40s white guy. We're perfect. But I do feel like that's the elephant in the room is like you're forming a group mind with a bunch of people with different experiences and different solutions to problems than you have. And I think that's, you have to be open to the fact that I was thinking this, that's better, that's more interesting, that's cooler. And especially when I'm running something either in development or in any capacity where I didn't create it, I always want to be doing it on shows that I wouldn't have thought of.
Yes,
I don't want to. If I would have thought of it, then it's like, I'm sort of now having. If it's like, I never would have thought of this experience. That's amazing. Let me help work on bringing that to life.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
So let's slide towards production a little bit. So working with the writer's room, you've got these scripts. One of the questions I always have with other showrunners, because I think it's a little different for each of us, is like, you get to a place where you've got these scripts, you're in the middle of prep, your production team is going to say, are these scripts locked? And what that means is the script, you lock the pages so that from now on, whenever you make a change, if the change is on a specific page, then it will, then say it's on page 7 and you make it a little bit longer, there will be a 7A. Page 8 will stay exactly the same way. Page 8 has always looked, unless you make changes to page 8. The reason that's important is because people are prepping their scripts and they've got all their notes and they've got all these things together. And if there's a new script, people are always like, oh, you have a white production draft and then you've got everyone's pinks, blues, whatever the color is next for your production.
Triple goldenrod.
Triple golden. Oh, I hope you never get to triple goldenrod.
That's a disaster, by the way.
But when there's a new script come out, then all their notes have to shift to that new. And if you only have changed a couple pages, then they can just kind of take out those old pages and put the new ones in because the script is locked. There are a lot of, you've got scriptation now that kind of like will transfer those notes for you.
That's right. People I know use that and love it. I haven't used that. I've used it.
Yeah, I've used it. Yeah, I've used it before. And it is fantastic. There are ways to do it, but there's some people who still use pages, still use paper.
A lot of crew.
Still use. So for me, I don't try and lock until after I've had a table read. I want to
cast like the actual.
With cast. Like I want to do, and I try and do especially if it's one of those shows where I have all my scripts before like when we start prep.
You've got. I want
to have a table read with my act, especially for comedy. I want to have a table read with my actors because I know there's going to be a lot of changes after the table read. And then what I'll do is I'll lock it after. So I always tell my line producer, I'm like, hey, can we get a table read at the beginning of prep so that I can get as many changes out of the way before I lock the scripts, because that week before the table read, I'm getting messages from people. Hey, are these
all the time?
These scripts locked, or what's? It doesn't say production. What's going on here? And it's like I'm locking them soon.
No, people lose their mind on that.
I don't want to lock them, and then I have a bunch of changes in the next revision, and then all of a sudden everyone's got like A and B pages because all the stuff wasn't figured out before. Like that's kind of how I roll with lock scripts. I try and get as much change out of the way before I lock them, and then
if you're playing the drinking game at home, it's every time he says lock. That's when you want to
lock it up.
Do you want to talk about that first?
No. You go ahead.
I'd say, I mean, like for me. And do you guys up here do the same thing where if it's more than 50%, you do a full? So if you haven't done that, it means if you're changing more than half the script, you issue a whole new script. Yeah. So that's a production pink versus pink pages. Yeah. I'll tell you what I will try and do with production is I'll tell them the locations are locked.
Yeah.
And things like that if I need to, because if I know this scene has to be in the boardroom.
Yes.
But every word might change.
Yes.
I can still tell them this is still. These are the right locations. And sometimes there's a passive aggressive question when they're asking, are they locked? What they mean is, do we have to do the helicopter scene? Like, are these locked? Yeah. And you're like, I was thinking they're locked.
Yeah. We see the shootout is still in here.
It feels like we said, please don't do the shootout. And you're like, it's locked. But so I'll tell them that I'll do as much of the stuff ahead of time where I'll go here, or I'll slide them an undercover draft. But with the other thing I find very challenging, and I think you're getting that as well, is like, and it's really important to have a script coordinator you have a rapport with, because some script coordinators, you'll be in a meeting and there'll be 3 or 4 word changes that come out of it, and you'll go back to your office and realize they've issued pages, and you're like, don't. Because then you get this flurry of, I'd rather hold on to stuff for a few days sometimes and accumulate changes than do one. Because it's very easy to suddenly be like, why are we on this color? Well, we had this scene changed this day, this scene changed this day, this scene changed this day.
And it starts to desensitize people to respond to paying attention to the changes, right?
That's
one or two times it goes out and it is only a few words or it's one line. Then when the next one comes out, I'm not rushing to make sure, as urgently paying attention to it, because the last 2 times it doesn't feel like there was anything in there really for me. So I think, I would agree with that, is getting up, making it feel substantial.
The desensitizing is a good point. And also I've had times department heads go, what's changed on this page? You're like, oh, the action line. He no longer walks in confidently. He just walks in. That probably could have been an audible. But I think doing it after a table read makes a lot of sense if you can do that, because you're right. A whole scene might get tossed in the garbage after a table read. Now, are you block shooting mostly up here with multiple episodes?
For the most part, and usually like with if it's like a 6-episode series, sometimes depending on how many directors you have, you might block shoot all 6 episodes at the same time.
Like a feature schedule.
Yeah, I've seen that. Like, I remember, I think Late Bloomer, I didn't work on the show, but Late Bloomer season 1 or 2, they were shooting all 8 episodes at the same time.
Sure.
So, we did that for Bria too.
That's right? As well,
Yeah, so and sometimes you
that was 8, right?
No, it was 6.
Yeah, and sometimes you're shooting like 2 or 3 episodes at the same time, and then it just depends on how many directors.
And that's becoming more common south of the border. Brockmire, all 4 seasons were shot feature style, which again was so challenging for Hank because Hank Azaria was in everything in that. And in fact, at the end, he was like, "Can you cut me down to?" And he's a very precise guy. I want to be in 65%. And he would count pages. He'd be like, "This is 67%. I'm not gonna." But even going Dutch, we would do that. That was block shot 2 episodes at a time. Acapulco was block shot 2 episodes at a time. A lot of these things, when you leave LA and you're somewhere else, you tended to block shoot them. And it makes sense sometimes, especially if you're trying to have some sense of scope and you need to use a big location. Let's get what we need out of it.
Let's do all the things that we need to do at
But
this
it makes
one
things
place.
challenging because sometimes you're doing that. Are the pages locked? And you're like, I'm going to now make changes today after this to 6 scripts and reissue pages to all of them because we've changed what they're doing at the stadium in every one of them.
Right.
And it's a lot.
And to your point about what you really need a strong number one, or a number one who really understands the responsibility of a number one, I think, too, when you're doing that. Because we had a similar thing, and I didn't realize it at first, but Bria is in pretty much every scene, right? You never see her. So at some point, I think we realized that when and like built in a scene or 2 with her mom independently so that she could even at least have a break in the day kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But then what ended up happening is she was a little under the weather and they prescribed her something.
Oh, no.
And she didn't take it so she was supposed to take like in a thing. But she didn't. So she doubled up at lunch. And I guess it has a slight drowsy effect, but we're recording the take.
Oh my God.
And she like goes to open the fridge, but I think she thinks she's doing it in real time, but it was like slow motion. we're watching the thing. We're like, are you okay? And so she's like, yeah. And like moving slow, and we're like, oh, we're gonna, and then so she's explaining to us, we're like, we're gonna send you home, babe. We're gonna, we luckily had there was one other scene. I think it was our last day in this location, and there was one other setup kind of thing. Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, of course, it would have been fine. But otherwise, we would have burned a couple hours that day on nothing if every single scene that was happening there.
And with our budgets, that's terrible.
Yes,
With the budgets up here, losing a half day on home ec, we dealt with pregnancy and weddings and a lot of things. Suddenly someone's not available for, and you're like, well, how do we do that? How do we, sometimes to keep one of the characters in it, to keep Caitlin in it, we shot a couple scenes ahead of time before she had to leave and drop them in. But like, what do you do? And if you have a show that's all one lead, the easiest stuff to shoot is always the stuff with the strongest ensemble for shooting. Like when we did The Unicorn, obviously it's Walton Goggins' show, but we had Rob Corddry and we had, Omar and a great cast. But it is so challenging. That Hank Azaria show was like that, and I've had a couple other ones where it's like, you take a step back, you realize, you have, especially when you're block shooting 8 episodes, he has to have, and luckily Hank did, 8 episodes committed to memory.
And he's got to know the whole world.
And he would do it. He's a control guy, so he would come in and having done so much voice acting, he would come in and he would know every actor's lines.
Of course,
But again, if he gets sick, you're screwed. So I think it's funny, all these smaller order shows tend to often be a one person driving it.
And that's all you can afford.
That's all you can afford. But I think having a mechanism to have another character built up enough that it doesn't feel weird to be on them. I think that's really smart to give your lead a break. That's
important, and especially if you were doing family shows. Like kids,
of course,
are unpredictable. Like I was shooting Secret Life of Boys, and we had a little kid who was, he was great. Like Joel is fantastic. He played Chris in the show, but when he was 7, one day he was like, "I'm under the table. I'm not doing it today," and it was just like, all right.
Wow.
It's like,
I hadn't even thought of that.
all right, we're gonna find some other stuff to shoot while we let Joel have his moment. Like it's just it's just. You know, for me especially, like, I've done a lot of family comedy. Like I want to make sure like kids are taken care of on set. I want to make sure like the parents are comfortable. Like you it's child labor is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I want to make sure to be as respectful and be as you know as good as possible with you. So then when they have those moments, like they're kids, that you got to let them have those moments. So it's your job as a production to be ready for those moments with other things to shoot, other things to do.
That's really smart. I've never had to deal with that. I mean, my son came and played saxophone on Home Economics, the private school outfit. And then he got offered, like, they're like, he was great, we'll bring him for a speaking role. He's like, no, the shirt was itchy. I'm like, okay. I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be like $1,500. It's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, itchy shirt.
Itchy shirt.
Can you buy me a PlayStation? You could have bought yours. But it was funny just seeing him go through wardrobe and sit with the kids because he had to go to the school with them that day.
Right.
But I hadn't thought of the fact that if you rely on those actors, you really have to have.
You gotta be ready.
But that happens all the time in production where you suddenly say, okay, the set fell apart. The actor had to go home. This had to happen. How do we do that? Can we shoot the scene? And you are going, let's whip this open and let's change who's in the scene. Let's figure it out. Which is
sometimes it's not a 7-year-old who's having a tantrum.
Yes,
sometimes
real, very real.
Sometimes it's
it actually often is not the 7-year-old. It's actually more rarely the 7-year-old.
That's so true.
I think by the time it's the 7-year-old, you're like, you know what? This makes sense. Let's just take a break.
Absolutely. But when you're in production, I mean, so most of the time you're up here shooting, you're finished writing when you're in production, you're saying.
We
finished the script.
People try to be, but there are often, I think people are surprised when I have scripts ready at the beginning of prep.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, especially here in Canada,
wow.
People are like, "What? You got all the scripts?" I'm like, "Yeah," because we don't have a lot of prep. And they're like, "Wow." So I don't think it happens as much as I think it should happen. There's still a lot of people who are still working through things and grinding, and I think that also comes down to like sometimes people feel like they have to do it at the schedule that the broadcasters have asked for, and they don't understand that they can ask for the time at the beginning. Say, I need this much time to get my scripts done.
Right.
They don't do that. They think, well, I got to do it when they tell me to do it because I should be thankful for this opportunity.
Yeah.
But if you're thankful for the opportunity, you should also give yourself the grace to do it the right way. And
the
if
best
you're,
conditions possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So ask for the time up front.
And the network, honestly, then they get to weigh in on the scripts as opposed to going, this shoots on Thursday, so what are your notes?
Yeah.
No, did you have everything written for your show beforehand?
Yeah, because I was also going to direct too, and it was my first time show running. I needed to be able to be in like managerial mode and things like that and not have that. And I was fortunate enough to have a great script coordinator, Jackie Batson-Duca, who I think you worked with as well. And so I really trusted her. And one of my EPs, Tanya Thompson, was a writer on the script. She's my writing partner outside of it too. So I was very fortunate to have people I really trusted that could step up and handle a thing or whatever if we needed to, and so that I could be in managerial mode. And so that's the way I'd ideally prefer it, like more often than not. But of course,
I think most people are thankful for it because, like, even for like Overlord and the Underwoods, we had this situation where we had 20 episodes. We wrote them over which is a lot. We ended up writing them. We got money to write all the 20 episodes because we weren't sure if we were going to shoot in the fall or in the spring. We decided to shoot in the spring because we wanted more greenery and stuff, which was great. So when we started prep, we had all 20? We had the time. We had all 20 done.
Wow.
So
amazing.
Our production designer designed the house for episode 1 and for episode 20. We had a bunch of random stuff happening in the shows.
Great.
So he put portals in the house. He had stuff like
he was ready for all of it.
He was ready for all of it. He was like, well, the basement gets finished in episode 20, so I have some stuff where it's unfinished here, so we can kind of get to the. So
that's great.
He was able to and you also have to have a production designer who wants to read all 20 scripts when they start. He dug in.
Yeah.
So it was, and it was great. It was one of those things. And the thing I'll tell broadcasters when they don't want to give you the time at the beginning is I'll say, it will maximize your budget. If we had to do all those changes halfway through the season, it would have cost us so much more money. But now we can put the money where we want to see it if we get everything ready in advance, right? So that's how I'll convince broadcast. Like, hey, listen, you want to use your money right? Like we need the time to write these scripts in advance so that we can use the budget that we have as opposed to trying to. And then production companies, especially, whose their earnings are specifically tied to how much of the budget they use,
Yeah.
they will fight for you to have the time if they
Right.
know that they
Because
can.
then they have a cushion, they have
They have a
more
little
money.
cushion.
That's
right?
smart.
I got to say, the thing that you're saying about having a production designer, the whole giving, when I say give the writers like props or flowers for the script, same with the production team. When you're in production,
Yep.
there are a lot of people who don't want to read everything, but there are a lot of people who go above and beyond where they're like, you're in a dorm room and they're like, see, I thought, because what you said earlier, the calendar on the wall is kind of a callback to that. And they're so in on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, no, this can't be a joke room because it has to, the whole thing, the whole premise is that how real and serious this is. And they're being, but so you have to find the opportunities to go, that's amazing. I love it. Keep going. Or to say, that's great. I just don't think we can use it because it's a gift to have them so invested in it and want to be, and they're going to come up with stuff where you're like, oh, that's hilarious. In fact, they should comment on it. Well, let's write a joke about, like, you'll run with it, but it is you. I've seen showrunners go, no, we can't use that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But it deflates people. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I really do believe that you want, like, to inspire the best creativity out of people, right? You really, and I always say, like, I'm very complimentary because I also am sincere in my critique kind of thing, but I also don't want that to be the only thing that you're ever hearing from me or what have you. Kind of, like, I don't respond well to that either. And especially when, like, it triggers all of my kind of, like, you know, the camp counselor in me kind of thing, right? When I am, like, away in this other thing, I know we've given you, like, $50 to make this stunt thing happen where she's supposed to, like, go to the sunken place through this mattress or whatever. And then when they're like, they're like, oh, hey, actually, we worked on a thing. You want to come see it? And you're like, oh my goodness, thank gosh. I did not think this was going to look nearly as good as it actually did. Thank God.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? You didn't even. And so to, like, yeah, there's a whole person, a whole team who is spending the entire day trying to figure out how to get that thing to go or to happen or to, like, make it work. That, like, yeah, acknowledging that goes such a long way in the same way that it would for myself, right? So
I think striking that there's two words that it's very easy to say this because there's so many times when you write a script and, you know, you'll go to wardrobe or whatever and they're, okay, he's going to wear this hat. I'll go back to that. But the words that you want to say is like, yeah, fine, doesn't matter. Don't say doesn't matter.
Yeah.
These people are working long and hard.
It matters. Yeah.
And all of it, and some of it doesn't matter. But it has to look good. What you mean by that is it could be either. Those are both fine. Those are both fine. Fine. Say that. They both work. I like this one. Or which one do you, if it's something you don't care about, which one do you like? Great. And you got to remember, especially wardrobe, network executives get to a point where everybody wants to weigh in on everything and they love weighing in on wardrobe, sets. And so even if you're not thinking about it, they're dealing with a million people chiming in about what these characters look like, what the whatever, and you're just, and that's great for you because you're like, great, they're not worrying about the scripts, they're worrying about the skirt that this character's wearing, but it means your wardrobe person's dealing with that. So I just try and find ways to not say, it doesn't matter, instead go, which do you like, or either are fine, or both are good, because you mean it literally in the sense that I'm trying to have this 300-foot monster explode over here, so I got to focus on that. I don't care what shoes they're wearing.
Yes.
But they do, and they're doing stuff to make your show look and feel
I
better.
think giving people that artistic freedom also allows you to create a space for them to feel like they can make some more stuff.
Yes,
and they'll work harder for you.
It can happen creatively, but it cannot. Like I always say, like, give them something. Like sometimes in those instances where I don't really have a strong preference, is a perfect opportunity to say, you can decide. I want to go with your decision. Like, which one are you leaning to? Or you also got to read the room when it's like, when they're like, the network really likes this one. Here are the two options. Which one do you like? And they're saying, please don't pick this one that the network also likes. Like, you know, or like, you got to like be like on the side, be like, or when you're like, oh, this thing, and it's like going to be 6 times harder to execute kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's that? Is this going to be a big pain for you guys? You have to open the floor because, again, so many people are used to, if they raise that kind of flag, being like, that's going to really eat into us creating this other thing, just being told like, we'll make it work kind of thing. Yeah. So that even if you can say, okay, what's that about? Is this going to be harder for you guys? Because if I really don't have an opinion either way on this particular thing, well, can I make this easier for you? Because I know somewhere down the line there's going to be an ask for me that's going to be. And so give them something, and also letting your team, because I think then what that also builds is then know like, I'm on your side. Like I'm not here just to make your life harder or anything like that. And I really try to, like, one of the things that clicked for me, I mean, I may have said this to you before, as a showrunner, was realizing like, I think one, we all have the same shared primary goal, which is we're trying to make the best show possible. Like if I don't believe that, then you wouldn't be here. Like I wouldn't have hired you. And even if the production company hired you, I would flag to them like, hey, I don't think this person's trying to help us make the best show possible.
Right.
But every department, every person has their own secondary goals, right? Like the line producer trying to make sure the show comes under budget. You know, production designers maybe really trying to flex that they know how to do sci-fi with this show, whatever it is. And so my job as a showrunner is to help decipher when helping you achieve your secondary goal is going to undermine the first one.
That's really
right. And so when
great.
you're coming to me for the fourth time asking about the extras in that scene with which I already said I need the 10, I don't take that personally. Like you're just trying to like, you know, like get me to think, but understand like, oh, okay, you're just trying to achieve that secondary goal. And in helping you, which is like, you know, less of a cost on beachy.
Yeah.
And if I say yes to that, is that really going to make that scene not be as good as I think it's going to be? And sometimes the answer is yes to that. And then that's when I know, okay, double down. And here's the reason why. And sometimes the answer is no. And when it's no, then it's okay, great. I can give you what you want. Yeah, we can cut it down by 7.
That's a great way of I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a great way. And I would even just add important little caveat I always think of is that everybody's job on the show isn't to make the best show possible. It's to make the best version of your show possible. Because sometimes they have different ideas of what the best show is. And you're like, I got this huge explosion. It's going to be this amazing thing. And you're like, that's awesome, but it has to be, I need it to be comedic, and that's too big. That is the best explosion, but it's not the best.
Yeah, we don't need all those legs.
And I think sometimes asking, that's a great point about someone comes back 12 times. Sometimes it's just worth asking, you seem like you want to cut down the extras. Why is that? And they go, well, because I want to have 7 for the next day, and I won't if we do 10 here. Or they go, well, because the log line says the campus is abandoned at night. Isn't it weird to have 10 people? And sometimes you're like, oh, shit, that's a good point. You keep coming back, but they don't want to make a big stink. But the secondary goal is so true. This is 1 gig for them, and they're doing it for. That's really smart.
And it's just like, sometimes it can work. You can get to do the cool shot, and that you'll get to add to your reel, and we get the thing. And then other times it isn't. But it just helped me also not take things personally when it felt like we could brought back to questions like, okay, well, I don't think the line producer is not trying to help me make the show, right? So this has to be about something else. And it just helped me deactivate my defenses, right? Even as a person feeling like, well, why do you keep asking? Where like I said I think instinctively we just, especially because I think I went in so vigilant, like thinking like, you know, you hear all these horror stories and then the network wants us that I'm just like waiting for that moment. When are they going to think, oh, this is it. They want to blow up the whole, but it really, understanding and looking at it through that lens just really helped me better decipher how to like manage that much decision making and what was going to take priority, and to not see it as like a personal thing and more just in the framework of this.
All the stuff we're talking about, this is kind of ties to something that you're going to be dealing with as a showrunner, especially during prep and production, is like meetings. Like there are meetings on meetings on meetings. A lot of times, like you're going to get to a place where you're going to have to choose where you're going to be, whether you're going to be in the room or in a meeting or on set. Sometimes things are happening all at the same time, which is why we get back to having strong number twos. I always tell people like it's important to be at least at the first creative meeting with a particular group, because you really want to set the tone. You really want to let them know what your vision for the series is. You want to let them know what you're looking for as a whole. I think it's important for them to hear that from you. And I think also, and I've had this in the past too, where if you have a number two that you think that you think highly of, they might be like, well, I don't know if I should listen to this person or not. So I always want to make sure I set up my number two as like, if I'm not available, if this person says something, that's the same as me saying that thing.
That's great.
And if they need me, then they will check in with me. Because a lot of times I get to a place where it's like, especially if like you have, it's still a very misogynistic situation sometimes. So if my number two is a woman or someone non-binary, then it's like, they're like, well, what does Anthony say? And just like,
is there a man who can weigh in?
Yeah, it's just like, no, like I have learned, because in the past I was just like, oh, well, everyone just assumes, and then I would hear from certain co-APs like, oh, well, they're not listening to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I have to have this.
That's tough
conversation. So meetings, I think it's establish a tone at the top, and then the later meetings, you can, once you've established a good tone and everyone understands what you're looking for creatively, then you can kind of like, you can choose to delegate those responsibilities and have those things. But I think it's never ending.
Never
the
ending.
meetings.
One of
Never
the
ending.
Jason, you said it earlier, making a decision out of meetings as like if you have a decision, even if it's to say like, yes, this and this is the backup, or as many meetings where you can make the decision out of
Check
because
something off.
check something off
Yeah.
because that can become nightmarish. Just like because every meeting you've had today now needs to happen again. Otherwise,
Oh,
right? Like,
absolutely.
and
And because there's a production meeting at the beginning and then one further along, you can find yourself talking for 30 minutes about something you're not even in your gut sure is going to survive the table read. You're but it's happened. You're like, and part of you's like, I don't know if we're going to do this. You start going.
No. I mean, that really is it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Two of the most challenging experiences I had with that was, well, just recently on Going Dutch, we were shooting in Ireland, and I was the producer on set because we didn't have everything written while Joel was writing. So I would go to Ireland, I'd be on set doing all this stuff. But we, because of the time difference, got into a situation where we had almost a 24-hour writer's room. Oh, wow. We would have the room in LA, and at the end of the day, like the beginning of their day would be the end of our day. So we'd finish on set, we'd get on the room with them for a while, and then they'd write, and we'd wake up seeing what they'd written, and we would rewrite it, and Joel and I would rewrite it on set, or so you'd be doing.
Oh my God!
So you'd be doing. It would be nonstop. I would wake up to, like a 3-minute scroll of notes from the network on what we were shooting that day because they were still up, and so it would be 6 a.m. I'd wake up to that, or 5 a.m, and then you'd go to set. You'd shoot all day, and there was always something. So at lunch, I'd go rewrite stuff, or Joel would send me the pages he'd worked on, and I'd rewrite those. And then send them back to him. We would go back and forth that way as a mini writer's room with what the writers had done. And so it was 24 hours, and coordinating that was tough because you're also doing prep meetings and production meetings. So one of us would be on set, one of us would be in prep, one of us, so it was, and the other one was doing Man Seeking Woman, which I got to say, Simon Rich, when he was doing that, is a great showrunner. And he was the most organized. 10 o'clock would happen in the morning. He'd be on a phone call with one of his other projects, walk in, put it down, we'd start. No small talk. It was fun. We'd go, but we'd work at 11:15. Be like, let's take a coffee break. We'd take a break for 5 minutes. We'd work till 12:30, exactly an hour for lunch. He'd walk off, do more work, come back at 1:30, exactly. And we'd stop at 6 o'clock. If we stopped at 5:58, he'd be like, I think we're going to call it early. And it was 6:03, he'd be like, sorry, I kept everybody late. And we'd walk off. And it was so surgical. But when we got here, because we were editing at one point and still finishing scripts, because same way we would do table reads here, we would be, if we were shooting from, 10 till 10 that day, I'd be on set at 8 in a production meeting. We'd shoot till 10, and then we'd go to the trailer till 1 a.m, look at cuts, and do that way. So it was nonstop. But the only way we survived it was having to tag team some of those meetings. So again, he and I would both handle all the first round of meetings, then we'd walk away. And I think what you said about defensiveness is huge, because I learned something on that show. A director, great director, who I know, but a great director, we stayed very late shooting, and we blew a lot of overtime shooting stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. We can't work with it.
Yeah.
But it fell on me. I should have said, let's drop these shots. Right. Let's get out of it. And I deferred too much. And it's like knowing when it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then having that, to a wardrobe person, I like both. What do you like? And then knowing when it is a problem and stepping up in the moment. And if you don't step up in the moment, owning it the next day, going, I should have done that, because I regretted that for a long time, where I'm like, I made it that director's problem, and it was my problem. But anyway, having people you can help shoulder the burden of those meetings is the only way you can survive those schedules.
Yeah.
But I love what you're doing of saying number 2, he speaks for me or she speaks for me when I'm not here.
Because it's because what happens is then the delegation doesn't help.
No,
because you still have to weigh in on all the things that you thought you didn't have to weigh in on anymore. And that person's obviously there because they've been with you through the process, where they understand the scripts, they understand all the arcs and all those things, and so you trust them to make decisions. And if the other people are not trusting their decisions, then it's not helpful.
And if they can come to you with a hit list at the end of the day saying, here are the 4 things I wanted you to weigh in on, I weighed on everything else.
Here
are the 5 I want you to weigh in on. That's great.
Now you're like, it's much. Your brain is much more free to actually be creative and do the things.
Did you have a good number 2 on your show?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Well, Tanya
of course, your writing
acted as
partner.
that
Right.
number
Yeah,
two
right.
too, and she'd been on since the beginning. But then I lucked out when I did Bria because some of my closest friends happened to also be some of the best qualified for these jobs, and
Yeah.
so the other director
That's
that was
great.
on the season was Kelly Fife Marshall, who's a great director. She has
Right.
more episodic experience than me, kind of
Right.
thing, right? And was on the phone when I was delivering drafts, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta finish this thing," and so she knew so much of what I wanted and that kind of thing, so I
Yeah.
could really trust that. And like it did let me be a better manager, better leader because I didn't have to worry. I trusted the creative, I trusted where we're going and the other hands that might be on it, kind of thing. And it was an interesting thing though about the empowering, I think, that person and identifying and calling it out. Because one of the things that Mark had said to a few of us, which was I think was super smart, and especially if you're like a woman or coming from a marginalized community that isn't normally in that seat,
Yeah.
that like even on the first day of production, his advice to, and it's, like I'm a very like extroverted out there, that kind of person, and I think I can like I've always been that default leader type person, and I feel like when I'm in a room that happens naturally, but everybody doesn't have to be like that. But
Right.
one of the things that he said is so important is like yes, we'd love to not have to do it, but go around and introduce yourself to the department heads. For better or for worse, a lot of them are not used to seeing you as the person, as the showrunner or as the producer or as the
Absolutely.
thing, right? And so like kind of get ahead of that, right? Introduce, let them know and make that one extra touch point, right? You can't be, it doesn't help you to be in the office with the door closed, right, for most of the time and not having that interface because then it further, even if I say like this is the number 2 kind of thing, instinctively, right? That's not we're looking toward, turning toward thinking that. And so, and I thought that was really smart and totally does help, right? Like close that gap because if there's me and an older white guy that are standing beside each other near a monitor kind of thing, people are not going to think that I'm the showrunner or the creator naturally.
No.
Yeah.
And so it really did, and I think it made a difference for one of our producer friends. But like,
They will always defer to the older and whiter person.
Yes.
Like if you're standing, if there was like a 75-year-old white guy and beside him a ghost, they'll turn to the ghost. They'll always go one older and whiter if they can do it, and it's ridiculous. But I think and also I think as a showrunner, it's very easy not to go to those beginning meetings because there's so much writing to do.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll be in my office, but you have a finite amount of resources, and sometimes releasing. I find holding loosely is your big thing. You have to let go a little bit. The other way is, for example, in production, you have jokes and bits you wrote on day one. That you wrote the outline because you wanted this bit. You wrote the script because you want this bit. You fought the network because you want this bit. Then you get on production, the bit's not working. And you have to be like, am I going to spend an hour trying to make this work? Or are we just going, moving on? Being able to do that at every step along the way. I don't know if it's the case here. One of the things I think was very valuable about the writers' strike in the U.S. that cost me so much money. So much money. I had to walk off Acapulco. We went on strike in Mexico, and then home economics fell apart like a week before the strike ended. So,
oh my God.
whatever, selling blood works. It's fine. Is that having another writer on with you through production and post?
yes.
Because writing never stops until the final cut. There's always
That's a
someone.
budget conversation that you have to
Yes.
have with your line producer at the
Yes.
beginning of the process and saying,
Yep.
hey, I want this person.
Yes.
Save money, make sure we have the
Yes.
funds to keep this person
Yes.
as long as possible.
I placed a Hail Mary call to Anthony actually because it was up for conversation. Because they're never going to be like, hey, you want somebody the entire time.
Never. They're never gonna say
right?
that.
And so they asked me, but they're like, well, we could do like maybe 4 just through prep. And I called Anthony. I was like, hey, so the coordinator, you have them all the time with you, right?
Yes.
And he was like, yeah, and always. And that's
have
how.
to.
But like you really do. I mean, and like no harm, no foul. This is the name of the game, right? We're
Yep.
trying to make this as cost effectively as possible.
Right.
But I gotta recognize I don't know what I need and like gotta tap in with other things because of that. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't have known. But it was such a huge help.
Yeah.
Especially
It's
because I was
massive.
directing on it too. Like I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
massive.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
doing
You
that.
just need other. You need other points of view. You just need
Yes.
other viewpoints. You can't see everything from where you're standing all the time. So
And you don't want to, especially even when you're blockchain, you can't be handcuffed to set the whole time.
Yeah.
No.
If you could have someone else going, well, one of us is going to go to that location meeting about tomorrow. One of us is going to babysit this.
yeah,
We can split that work. We can do it together, and it will be better for, even if it's not writing all the time, having
Yeah.
someone. And again, I feel like, especially here, you really have to build up that farm team. We don't have, have the opportunity for people who are super creative to work on 7 shows before they move up the ranks.
Right.
Yes,
They're often you're relying on somebody who's their first time being there, and even if they're not going to be, the person you rely on the most in production, having them there, having them learn the skills means second season you can rely on them completely. That's
absolutely
huge.
Yes. And I did that even from the writer's room with Bria Mack, because it was 6 episodes and 3 of them were in development for 2 years with the network, 3 years overall. And so we had 3 episodes that were really well plotted on that kind of thing and a shape. So one, that helped with some of the broadcaster notes, because a lot of that got throughout the years of development.
Figured it out, yeah.
And, I remember Mark just confirmed, he's like, okay, but if you give away one, you're going to make less if you give away these other scripts and that kind of thing. But also 2, I just want you to be mindful, because if it's not right fit, I've seen it where you do end up rewriting the whole thing or something like that, and that might be extra work. And I totally hear that and totally heard that advice, but I remember distinctly being like, yes, but I'm not going to write every episode forever. And even if we get a season 2 and one, I would love for that not to be our first time with other writers.
Yeah.
And even if we don't get a season 2, I would love to know other, for whatever else I do next, right? That I have, even if it is 2 other voices, right? That I've had an experience with, and test, okay, can you adopt my voice? Can we think, how does this work? And get that muscle for myself as a showrunner, but also build up the farming.
I tell people all the time, hiring other writers is job security, because if you get to a place where they become showrunners,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
They're gonna want to work with you. And I feel like this is a situation,
That's a
especially
great
in
point.
Canada. There's so many writers who are and I think producers are pushing them to do it too, because it's an easier thing for them to just have to deal with one contract where you're you can write the whole season. And I think it's a detriment to our, to our guilds, WGA, WGC, where we're not allowing people to come into these spaces and learn the craft and learn those roles. And I think they're telling us, for me, the reasons people keep on doing it are, one, it's a bigger paycheck, which they don't know if they're going to be if they're going to make money. And now, okay, I get that, but I'm prefer to spread the wealth. You never know. Things are going to come back to you. It's going to be beneficial in so many other ways. And I think the other thing, too, is that we get to that situation where not all writers are good showrunners.
Yes.
They do not know how to pass on notes. They do not know how to interact with other writers. So they're just it's just much easier for me to just do it all on my own. And then you get to set, and it's then now they have to actually, you can't hide now.
It's so true.
Let me just run down some of the meetings you're going to deal with. There's a concept meeting. There's an art department meeting. There's costume meetings, makeup and hair meetings. There's stunt meetings, special effects and VFX meetings. And I haven't even gotten to tone meetings.
And 2 production meetings. Production at the beginning, production at the end.
There's
the background meeting.
Yes.
You're not going to get away
show
from
and tell.
connecting with people. You're going to have to at some point. So why not practice those skills in a writer's room where you're working with people who are going to be helping you make the show as strong as possible? So I always tell people, if you can figure it out, I think it's a good learning tool for showrunners. It's a good learning tool for the people who are in your room to kind of get better. And also, again, you just never know when.
It's insane to want to take it all yourself. I don't understand. If you think about it, you could do the show with one writer for 6 episodes. You're we could also do it with one less props guy. We could also do it with one less. All these departments have multiple people, and you're there the whole time. And it's I can't remember the writer. Selman would be mad at me. The Simpsons, one of the guys there, they always said was the greatest writer, the best writer. Sometimes up to half his stuff ended up in his script. Because you write it, you rewrite it as a group.
Yep.
The name on the script is not because they wrote the episode completely. It's to share some of the wealth and share an investment in the show. You're invested in the show. You're quarterbacking this episode.
Yeah.
You're the one who's going to always be fighting for this episode, and I need that because I've got 6, 8, 10 episodes on my plate. So when I say, let's rewrite this scene, I need someone who's been living and dying with it to go, if you cut that scene, this one doesn't really make sense. And you're like, oh, okay, you're right. And I don't care if I rewrite every word of it. Whereas, and you resent things. I was on a show where the creators took a story by credit on every episode.
Wow.
And it was like, they wanted
every show they get 25%.
Exactly, and they wanted people to know that they were the. I'm like, they know you got it created by.
Yeah.
You're the executive producers. You get money. The more the show rises, the more everybody wins, and I get so frustrated. It feels so penny wise, pound foolish to be like, I'll take all the scripts. Especially when the fact there's not residuals here. You get the production fee, but residuals. We should get those. Those are great.
They are. From someone who is enjoying residuals from shows he worked on almost 20 years ago.
Didn't you write like 720 episodes of Thundermans?
I did write. I am credited on 10 episodes of the Thundermans.
That's
and
all right.
That's
awesome.
And I will tell people are like, oh, the Office residuals are nice too, but
Yep.
like those Thundermans residuals, like
It's amazing.
Yeah.
they be showing that Nickelodeon show
I
everywhere
love it.
all the
Awesome.
times.
I mean, like a network rerun is amazing.
Yeah.
But they don't happen that often.
No, that's the thing. Like, that's
yeah.
why I tell people like people were like, why did you switch over to family comedy? And initially it was because that's where the work was
Yeah.
for me, but also once I started realizing, like Nickelodeon, Disney, all these kids, they will rerun the hell
Yes.
out of those shows, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the residual game is like, because you can be on a network show,
Oh, yeah.
you can do 2 seasons, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
And thanks to streaming now, you can
Yes.
you find
if
it
a network show
streaming, but-
becomes a hit, it's like one of the guys I worked with on Home Ec, Tucker Cawley, was on Raymond for the
Yeah.
whole run.
Yeah.
He wrote the baggage episode of the suitcase.
Yes, I
and-
love it. Yes.
So, and but again, he's very successful and deserves to be, but a lot of that's residuals from a show like that reruns all over the
Over,
place.
yeah.
But if you're on a show, as you said, for 2 or 3 years, like when I was on the Unicorn, or even Home Ec, I had episodes that reran 2 or 3 times because in the summer they'd rerun it. But as soon
Yeah.
as the show ends,
Yeah.
That's
it's
it.
not enough so it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
if you do 2 seasons of a Disney show, 3
Yeah.
seasons of it's
Guess what?
forever. But it's hundreds of thousands of dollars over your life in residuals. So I've decided we should get them up here too.
Yeah, you know what? This is a good idea. Canada,
Agreed.
we're gonna figure it out. We don't have a ton of time, but there's 2 things I want to touch on before we end this episode. One of the big questions we always get with like meetings is tone meetings. People are always like, "What? How?
Right.
What?" Like, I'm curious how you all tone meetings for. Basically, it's usually the showrunner, director, and sometimes it's just those 2. Other times you have producers as a part of it. For me, I like to have myself, my number 2, if there's a writer of that specific episode, and then the director.
Yep.
I actually try and keep the broadcasters and the producers out of those
Yeah.
meetings.
Absolutely. Sometimes I like the AD to be there for the block
Yeah,
too, because
yeah.
he's the one, shepherding the director through and making sure he has his stuff there.
Yeah,
but
that's obvious. That's absolutely helpful. But I think it's also a moment. It's a time for you to almost like. I sometimes use it as like, we're going to talk through the episode and talk about like shots and anything you're curious about. And go, like we'll do all those things with the director and talk about like what we want the show to be. But I'll also talk about things like, this actor, they're better on their first 2 takes than their last.
absolutely.
Get them. Get their coverage first. This when you're working with this wardrobe person, like this on-set wardrobe person, like they're a little bit. They need things to be a certain way, so just be mindful of that. Like like having those I use my tone meetings as also a little bit of a tea meeting, so that I'm just prepared. So then that way you're prepared for what you.
No, absolutely. And getting to know the director and having that shorthand. I've been on shows where literally we sat down and said, like, okay, so you're going to discover this actor's a monster. Don't take it personally. They're gonna walk off set in the middle of like. There's gonna be a take with another actor, and they're gonna be like. And they're going to walk over to me at the camera and go, can you stop them from fucking doing that?
Yes.
And you're going to be like, okay, because they're also a producer on the show. So don't be caught off guard by that. And as you said, I also like to get to know the director because, they're the one that you have to obviously build that episode with. And if they're good, they're looking at you after every scene to make sure you got what you need. But knowing what that rapport is, sometimes you get warning bells immediately with the director where they're like, "This is how I want to do it," and you're like, "Oh, we were thinking, well, no, I want it," and you're like, "Okay, I'll have to watch that."
Yeah.
And sometimes they have the same sensibility, but that's where you really can see how much work they've done. We had a director come in who'd done a bajillion episodes of like dramas like Grey's Anatomy and also and you realize they walked into the tone meeting and they clearly hadn't really even read the script,
Right.
and you're like, "Oh, this is a disaster."
Yeah.
But who did you have? Was it just you? And when you were doing your tone meetings, did you have?
Yeah, it was just me and Kelly. That
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing that Mark also mentioned too, because I was going to do the same thing that I do with the writers. Like I wasn't sure if it was going to be 2 of us or 3. Like each person gets 2 episodes.
Sure.
Or if it would just be Kelly and I. And one of the things that Mark flagged, we had like 4 weeks of prep, and my first meeting was just like every other director bring on, you have to have that meeting with them too. Like
Yes.
it's one more additional meeting kind of thing.
Yes.
And the way that it worked out, which is basically like out of 6, if we gave Kelly 4 of the episodes, the prep time we could have with her would have been as long as prep was overall. So
Oh,
we could have her
wow.
from the very beginning of prep, or I think or maybe 3 days
Still,
in or
yeah.
something, but
Like,
pretty
with
much
4 episodes,
the
you get-
entirety
Yes.
of prep
Yeah,
kind
for a
of
half
thing.
hour comedy, you get 10 days per episode, basically.
Yes.
So if you give her 4 episodes, then you get 40 days.
Yeah. So we had
with it.
her for the bulk of our prep thing, which I thought was that really worked out and worked really well. But in the tone, in the tone meetings, even when we still interviewed other people and stuff like that. And I mean, just even from the interview, just trying to see how are you gonna are you going to be able to translate, right? Because you have some people that have done exactly this kind of show before, right? Or, someone like R.T. Thorne, who we're talking to, who's done great sci-fi stuff and knows how to really think or what have you. And it's just trying to suss out yes, and so you know how to take that and translate it here.
Yeah.
You're not going to try and turn this scene into this big dramatic thing, in that way. And that's what I'm trying to suss out in the tone. Because I feel usually over, to your point, it really is getting to know each other and see what our instincts are and where those lie. Because to a certain degree, if you've read the script, right, the tone is the tone of the thing is kind of evident, and you're just putting a finer point on it. But it's are you getting that? Are you getting what the
especially in season 1 of a show, they're usually they haven't seen all the episodes sometimes they're smart and they read up, but sometimes they'll be so this is the scene where he's really angry, but you're well, actually we do that thing in the episode before that, so I was thinking it's more having those things. But I'll tell you, that 2 hours of tone meeting where you can go through what they're seeing through things, it pays dividends on the day because they're not asking, and also pays dividends in their cut, because they always get a cut, and quite often if they haven't been on the same page as you, that cut's going in the garbage and you're going to the editor's cut.
Right.
And you're just reverting, because if they've been the whole way through going, we're going to shoot this very genre-y, and you're no, I don't really want to lean into that.
It has to fit with the rest of the series. It has to be a part of it.
But I think that having the other writers there is good too, because sometimes questions come up that you hadn't. Sometimes they very often a director will ask something and you legitimately haven't thought about that. They're what if we do so is this a really an interrogation thing? And you're oh, it is kind of funny to play it like that. I haven't thought about that. And having the other writer there, you can actually have a sidebar where can we do that? And you're well, it's too much like this other thing. Or it would be really funny if we're doing that, we should bring the other character in.
Yes,
right.
yes.
We'll run with that.
Yeah.
But again, I always want everybody on the show to be better than I. If the director comes in with ideas I don't have, great. If the writers have ideas I don't have, great. There are showrunners who want weaker voices around them, and I think that's a problem. So but it is a balancing act. You want strong directors, strong points of view, but sometimes, and it is especially true with female showrunners, they will try and bulldoze sometimes, and it's really.
It's stupid to watch.
It's so stupid. Or you'll watch them even after the prep meeting, even if you said, okay, this producer, she's going to be on set with the whole time. I'm not going to be. She speaks for me. Or if you're the showrunner, you'll watch on set and a take will finish and it'll be great, we're moving on, and you're you haven't been consulted once. You're whoa, well, we
we move on when I say we move on.
And we drop those whole jokes. I didn't know if they're playing. That's what you want to be doing.
But I'm the showrunner.
For better or for worse, sometimes I activate the men around me. If I sense that, I will quickly go to whoever I think they do thing, and I'll be hey. So I don't know what's going on over here, but I need, if someone could, because you guys don't want me to talk to them. If someone could have a word just so we could nip that kind of thing, because it is it does happen, right? And it totally does happen, and it is it short circuits my brain sometimes, because I'm just
you're but
it's the worst. And it happens with everybody. I mean, it happens more in those cases, but and I think that key is having the ADs have a strong relationship with you. And also, I got to say, sometimes the misogyny in a director is terrible. It's worse in your DP. Because they're there the whole time and they second guess everything. But you want a team around you. So if the director, because the director is a huge part of the show, but they're only there for that episode and that prep. The DP setting the look the whole time. The ADs are you want them coming to you going, I think we're going to move on after this one. Do you have what you need? And the DP going, he wants to do this thing, which is fine, but you said you don't want to do dollies. You want to do all handheld for the whole look of the show. And he's bringing in a crane and a dolly.
So this goes back to another thing I was like as a showrunner, it's so important to know who's who on set. Like
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you've not been on set before, if you're in this place where you've been thrust into this position and you're like, I don't know, just check in, ask, like just know who is who on set, what their jobs are. And for a lot of the heads of departments, they'll have, like, for instance, if you have a production designer, they'll have an on-set dresser, someone who is, while the production designer is getting things prepped for future episodes, the person is on set, their representative is taking care of the things on set. For instance, you might have someone who's on set wardrobe, while the person who is your head of wardrobe is getting stuff ready, they're on set. So understanding who is who on set, like, get to know all those people, because, like Jay says, like, you're going to have people who are there for an episode. You're going to have people who are there for the whole run. And so it's important to just, like, have those relationships.
And to the point in terms, like, I would encourage anyone who normally isn't in that showrunner seat, if you're a woman, person of color, what have you, even if you can't get to shadow, like, another woman or person of color in that leadership position, watching any kind of, like, BTS or commentary, because there's two... I was fortunate enough to shadow Christina Carvalho on Hello Goodbye for CBC, and also Alicia Young in the first season of Run the Burbs. And watching someone, because I think it's one thing when you're watching, a very well-known kind of white male director do the thing and give certain orders, but when you're in the position, what you immediately think is like, but I'm not that guy. I'm not James Cameron, so I can't think. Right. But the two most formative things I took away from watching those two women was how they said no and how they pushed back and how they got angry when even showing that ire wasn't even something that I'd never really seen women, be angry, be like, I don't want that to happen, to stand firm on it and not, not waver in what they said. Because in one instance, in Hello Goodbye, and this is almost like a decade ago, but I remember that show is about reunions at the airport, right? First time things. And, I think whoever the cast producer was or was working had basically blown it a bit because the person could see them. And Christina was like, she didn't yell or whatever, but she was very firm, very direct. Like, who did that? Why did that happen? I don't want that to happen again. Please, and just the directness and the thing, like, it totally empowered me to be able to, I don't have to be nice and happy and jolly the entire time because I'm a woman trying to,
job to do.
Yeah, and it really allowed me to. And even with Alicia I shot Alicia on a few stuff, commercials and otherwise, and she had that as with a DP kind of thing where and she had given me the heads up when I was there, and she was like, yeah, so this is what happens with this person, you're gonna see that, and in real time. Right, was able to see, she said, okay, we're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And the guy who, was very senior, had shot everything, corner gas to this, to that, to that. I don't think he was a DP on corner gas. I'm just saying. Sure. But, straight up was like, yeah, no, but then that's going to this. So, guys, we're going to blah, blah, blah. And, it was as if what she said did not. Oh. It's as if she had not said what she had said at all. Right? And in that instance, right, she turned to me and but even getting the opportunity to see that in real time and then how she managed that was very, 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 very helpful for me when I finally stepped into the seat, because I could be like, no, I've seen other women in this position hold their ground, right? Say the thing or the hard thing or what have you, and we move on and move forward. And so, it's just in that, even to that minute degree, representation can be so important and helpful for you in empowering you to not get bulldozed.
And finding your own way to stand up to it, not doing an impression of some person who's strong you've seen and does that. And I would say Anthony's really good about this. He's always, your demeanor's always relatively calm, even when you're frustrated. And one of the things I have struggled with as someone who is a people pleaser at times, who wants everybody to get along, is occasionally when I've had to step up and do something, I've been more strident than I wanted to be, and more for at one point I was on Almost Heroes years ago, a director was just ignoring, the joke only worked if you shot it one way. It was wasn't being a dick about it. It was it only works if this is a reveal. It only works that way. And it wasn't getting shot that way, and we're like, no, it'll work. I'm like, no, it doesn't. And eventually I had to say, okay, we're taking 5, everybody off the set. I just didn't have enough self-control at the time. I knew it was showing. I knew my frustration. And a couple times it's happened, and I hate it. And finding ways to keep my cool while being, knowing that strength and volume don't have to be interchangeable. And I struggle with that. But Anthony always seems so level-headed.
It's that dad. And you have it now. So. It's that dad situation.
Kurt Smeaton has the same thing. I think you two both have a similar disposition as leader.
We have that. I was like, because I have been there, hey, Here, just come over here right now.
That's
Come here for a
hilarious.
second. Is that dad on the soccer field? Just like, hey, come here for a second. Just come here for a second. We gotta talk to you.
Yeah.
But I think that's also the building blocks of starting. If you trying to start being a leader in the middle of a conflict on set is so hard if you haven't started early. If you start in the first meeting by going, this is where we're doing, this is how it's going. Yeah. You're building this ramp where everybody's already predisposed to lean your way, and I find it's because if you wait, if you're like I'm everybody's good time buddy, we're all friends, conflict. You're just not setting up a ramp for it. It's better to be respected than liked in some of those situations.
Yes, and one thing, the last thing I'll say on this, which I find the most is like what we do is creative in film and TV, but for too long it's been this idea that if you're the artistic genius and that we just all adapt to your reactive emotions to things, but like especially in television, it is a leadership role. Like it is a manager and leadership role. And like I had piloted this program over the summer on Auntie Show where like to talk with some creatives who have work option and in development about that part. Because in development, it's so much about the creative element of it and as the story makes sense, what have you. But like, especially when it's your first time, you're preparing for this XYZ, but you don't know how to like tell your line producer no, I do, or yes, or like navigate that part of it. And the hardest sets I've been on or shows that I've been on where there was clearly, the person isn't ready for that role or that part of it or understanding it as a leadership role. And so with things even like, on Bria, there was one day where on paper, like in the schedule, it was going to be a 14-hour day. And we had more than what we would have needed for one shoot day, but not enough to justify the cost of two kind of thing. Yeah. But also like, we know a 14-hour day on paper is like really an 18-hour day, truthfully. And it was a Friday, and the first Friday, I don't need anyone, like because I'm in that managerial leadership position, right? I don't need anyone to tell me to look at the script there and see what really can go, because it's not in our benefit to burn our entire crew on the first Friday out of our 4-week shoot, right? With a Fraturday kind of thing. And so I went and I pulled a couple of scenes that technically, as much as I love them, right, weren't going to affect the story if we didn't have them, and would lighten the day, make it the 12-hour day that would feel closer to 14 than 14 to 18 kind of thing. And I remember the line producer and myself were like, what? Like it was like a revolution that I would have voluntarily done that kind of thing. Yes. But it's because like the whole show is funny. I like the world. Like I don't think this one or two scene is going to break the thing. But as a leader, right, you can't expect the best out of people. And I think when you do that, that even demonstrates to your other senior position leaders like, oh, you really do care about this thing, right? Yeah. You're willing to already make this change or that kind of thing. And understanding it as a leadership role and that you do really need to set the example 100%. Is really important.
That connects to we're over time now, but that connects to the last thing that I want to talk to you two about. Is like, especially with production, like one of the biggest things, making the day, right? Like making the day. And just for everyone watching, you're going to get a call sheet at the beginning of the day, and it has these strips, every scene you're going to work on. It's also usually got the names of all the people who are on the set that day. I usually try and make a point of like knowing who's on set, knowing names. That's one of the things that I think will help you connect with your
So hard crew. To do though. It's so important.
It's hard to do. And I think it's also one of those things where like, because you have the call sheet, you don't have to memorize, and you can be like, oh, who's that person again? Just kind of quickly check the call sheet. Oh yeah, that's Jordan. Okay. And hey, Jordan. And like, oh, this person knows my name. You sure knows my name? Easy thing to do. But making the day, just what you're talking about, learning how to work with your line producer, learning how to sacrifice certain moments, or pushing things to later. Like, there's an art to it, because there's a lot of things you're going to need to figure out. Things like, okay, do I have this cast back on another day? Do I have this location available to me later? Do I need to do these scenes for a specific reason? Like, what has to happen today, and what can I push? So those are the kinds of decisions. Like, I'm just curious if you guys have like any advice. I always tell people, like, it's a battle, keep cool.
Well, that's huge.
And every day is going to be a battle. Every day you're coming into like another battle. Try and keep cool, try and understand, try and work with your director, your line producer to make sure that you get what you need out of the day, but also make sure if you need to go a little bit over,
and
you can't come back again.
Can you go over? Like in Ireland, we were shooting, we had a 0 overtime budget. We had a couple, we said that, we had a couple of opportunities to stretch, but 0 overtime and a rolling kind of a lunch, more like French hours. So we knew that ahead of time. And for us, quite often, we'd have a big location day where we knew we had to get a ton of stuff through, and our directors go, "Oh crap, we're having a hard time." You know, we had Jason Weiner, who was the EP on Modern Family and stuff. And he knows his stuff. And he's like, "I don't think I can fit all this into a day." And so you go, "Okay, well, what material here can be a walk and talk in a different location that's heading up to this that we can we'll fake it on our studio as if they're walking up to the gym to do this. We can take a page and a half off. We can do that. How can we do those?" So ahead of time going, as you said, what scenes can not be materially affected by not being in this limited location? What other days, like if an AD says, "I don't know how to fit this on this day," well, what day do we have room on, and what locations and actors are available that day? Well, we can this is a pipe scene that's just about the plot. I'd like it to be these 3 characters. If it's only these 2, we can do it here. But on the day, I like to, because most ADs have this, get a copy of the shot list from the ADs and sometimes they'll just write, for each scene, we're doing 3 shots there, 4 there, 3 there, 4 there. And then
sometimes the timing,
sometimes the timing, how long it's going to be. And sometimes you can go, okay, why is this one 4 shots? Well, we're doing this. Well, it is a half-page walk and talk. Let's make sure that's a target of opportunity for us. If we're running behind, we'll do it as a walk and talk. We'll do 2 sizes. We'll get out. And directors often are good about knowing that, but ADs are really good about watching that. The problem is sometimes they're more schedule-focused than execution-focused.
Having an AD that understands the push and the pull between the budget and the creative.
Yeah, and we were literally shooting at a military base in Ireland, and there was no chance we were going to make our day. It was like miles off. So we said, well, we have a 3rd camera today. Can we, because there's a lot of inserts, and can one of us peel off that camera and start shooting stuff simultaneously to grab all that? And even if we want the director to be there, can we go set it up and then we'll just bring him over? And we were able to start catching up. But for me, knowing how many shots are there, looking at is there a target of opportunity from the next day we can pull up if we have an extra hour where we can start shooting stuff to get ahead of it? That's huge. But it's understanding what the day is going to look like. And as you said, I think it's great to pull things that you don't need ahead of time and have the foresight to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the other part is too, like, I'm lazy and I don't like working hard. I don't want to be there for 18 hours either. So
no one wants to do 18 hours
do the thing.
there. But making the day, but you doing it as a team management, like making the day financially huge. Yeah. Making the day for everybody's sanity huge. But also, you want people to not be burned out in the first week. And also, I think sometimes the other thing is giving up on things. Like I said, if you're in a shot and you have this much time, but partway in, the vase isn't exploding the way it's supposed. They're supposed to drop a vase, it's supposed to shatter. Yeah. There's a problem with the prop. It's not working. When do you say, okay, let's pan up and we'll do a sound effect of it hitting instead? When do you stop being precious? And having moments with your director at the beginning of the day going, or earlier saying, I really want to get this.
Yes.
So if we have to compromise, let's do.
It's all about the planning.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll offer to that I in hindsight, like I would do more now of and that I think was tough is I would rather if even getting ahead of it on the day. So if the AD is seeing or like we're starting to slip behind or whatever, I'd rather us mark lunch and be like, okay, we're gonna see if we can pick like how we can save there, whatever. Yeah. Or even if the like lunch has moved on, like I would rather we in between a setup stop and talk, like come up with the plan together, me, the AD, the producer, that kind of thing, then and try to avoid too much of the like while we're in the middle of the setup.
100%. Yeah, that's a great
because like my brain just it's obviously not going to come up with the best actual solution in this time, right? Or I'm just responding to, so you can stop talking to me because we're here kind of thing. And sometimes that has to happen, but that shouldn't be the default, I think, right? No. Is like where you're in the middle of, like, even if it's 2 minutes, set a timer. 2 minutes while they're moving something or whatever. Let's just talk about it explicitly. That's only great. This, troubleshoot, and then go execute that. Then
also if you have a number 2 or another writer on set with you, you can say, can you look this afternoon and see what can we say? And I'll say, if you haven't been on set a lot before, one of the most dreaded words is when you think you're done with a scene and you hear turning around, you're like, oh, we're not done. We're gonna spend 30 minutes turning around to shoot the other direction. And if you're watching your day get away from you, if you can practically look at the second half and go, is there any way to bring our characters onto the same axis
Yeah.
for something
Big
where,
time.
you know,
Yep.
Big
if
time.
literally, instead of across the table, if I sit on the bench beside you and talk to you,
Yep.
that saves us an hour.
Yeah, if you watch
So-
Letterkenny, they're always on the same.
Yes,
Yeah.
like
yes,
they,
yes,
they just
yes,
literally
yes,
move
yes,
the camera
yes,
back
yes,
and forth.
yes,
And that doesn't always work, but
No.
again, looking for those opportunities, and again, that's another reason having another writer on set is huge.
Yeah.
Because you can say, hey, why don't you grab the AD and talk about because the AD they'll know what they're concerned about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll know where they think the director's being more ambitious.
Yeah.
And that's really your bellwether. But I think, as you said, not trying to do it in the middle of everything else, but saying,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to do this. What can we do here to simplify it?
All right.
Wait a minute.
I think we've given them too much information. We could absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things where you realize this is the kind of thing we could talk easily about for another hour and a half, but we're not going to do that. So I just want to take a moment to thank my guests, Sasha Leigh Henry, Jason Belleville.
Delightful.
This has been fantastic.
I'm gonna make actually one plug. An entertaining way to understand the industry. Watch The Franchise on HBO. Have y'all watched
Yes,
that?
I've seen it.
It is because it's the first time. I mean, the studio is also great
Yeah.
in its own way, but we've never had the protagonist be the first AD before, and
Yes.
it really is. It's bone-chillingly accurate.
Yeah.
Oh,
The way
absolutely.
that there's a scene where they have that big stunt, and then
Yep.
yeah,
Oh, boy.
but highly recommended. It's a good.
That's great.
The kind of decisions that pop up, the kind of troubleshooting you would do as a showrunner.
That's a good
The
point.
the AD handles it differently, of course, but that's the way that things can
That's
happen
great.
on any given day.
And
Yeah.
I'll add one thing: if you're a first-time showrunner or you get an opportunity to do it, don't beat yourself up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw it up. And the nice thing about having a brutal day on set is eventually it ends, and you can take a regroup and go, how do I avoid that
Yes.
tomorrow? And you can always pivot the next day. And there's nothing you can do to your crew that is going to make them hate you so much that a great coffee truck or dessert
Yes.
truck
Yes. Yes.
can't fix.
Yes.
Like if you're having a terrible day and you walk off set going, let's get smoothies
Yeah.
for everybody. We'll do that, and then they'll love me again. But it's just give yourself a break because there are so many mini battles, and and just remembering that you said these are all people, and you're managing people,
Yep.
and that should be more important than the show should be super important, but it's people managing.
Absolutely. All right. Thank
Smoke
you
bomb.
very much.
Yes. That,
And there we go. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Great. Yeah.
See you in the next episode.
You a friend of ours? We giving out self-help seminars.
Should we take a break for a few minutes?
Love if you get involved. If you're looking where the truth lives, I can promise that you'll never find hubris. But we know that we cold and it's a fact, no cap. Sound days going stupid like.